Hello everyone! Today I thought I'd do something a little bit different this time. So instead of writing a script or even having some notes, I've chosen a topic and I'm going to ramble on about it and see if a video comes out of it. So the topic I've chosen is world-building technology in science fiction. Now there are a couple ways to do this. You may have heard of soft magic and hard magic. Well, similarly, there's soft technology and hard technology. Hard technology is what you might think of from hard science fiction. There's the laws of physics, there's technology and engineering that makes sense, usually given the science that we know, and there's hard, fast rules, and it's logical and it's used consistently. Whereas soft technology is more along the lines of what you see in superhero stories or in Star Wars. You know, there's technology and it's used similarly. Maybe you'll have hover technology instead of wheels, maybe you have holograms. But the point of soft technology is that the readers don't really understand the rules. It's just kind of something that's in the world, it's mysterious, it's cool, and it evokes that sense of wonder that's just, there's more to this world than I understand, and it's big and mysterious, and I used those words multiple times, didn't I? This is what you get when you have a ramble video. And there's merits to both types of science building. You know, especially if you're not a scientist type and you don't really understand technology that well, maybe technology in real life feels pretty mysterious to you, then it would make sense to go and do the soft technology route. Let's put in teleporters, and they have hoverboards instead of skateboards, you know, that kind of cool stuff. For me, given my background in physics, it makes more sense to choose a more hard technology approach. But I really love the soft technology feel. So what I do is I use my knowledge to create technology, but then I hide it behind a layer of mystery. And I use characters who aren't scientists to experience it as if it's soft technology. In the book I'm writing now, I give myself 3 technologies, and then most everything is based off of that. There's hyperspace, there's instant communication, and there's, what's the third one? Artificial gravity. And instead of inventing a new technology when I need something interesting to happen, I see how can I use these 3 technologies in ways that will expand the story. You know, what happens when I take them to extremes? What happens when I take them to logical conclusions that you might not initially think of when you hear instant communication? It's like, oh yeah, that's great. We'd be able to communicate between other stars. Oh, you bet we can do a lot more than that. I did kind of give myself a 4th technology, which I call diamond glass. It's basically glass made out of diamond, and that's what they make big spaceship windows out of. But does that really count as a sci-fi technology when it's something that we could believably invent within the next 50 years? You know, now that I think about it, hard technology usually is something that could be feasible within known science. So I guess in that matter, I'm sort of a middle ground between hard and soft. So why limit myself to 3-4 technologies? Now the reason I do that is, for me, it makes plotting kind of like a puzzle. Think of Sudoku, for instance. There's a grid, and there's a couple of rules. The rules are, in any row, column, or big square, you have to have the numbers 1 through 9, never repeating. And let's think about the number of puzzles you can create from that. Imagine that you only have 1 cube, and it's just got to have the numbers 1 through 9 in it, and you start with a few numbers placed. There's very few puzzles you can make from that. If you expand it to a 9 by 9, the number of puzzles you can create from that grow to a number that might as well be infinite to our human sensibilities. So then we could add more numbers. We could increase it to 16, you know, boxes of 4 by 4 in a 16 by 16 grid, but there's not really any reason to do that other than the novelty factor. We can make all the puzzles we need just from the 9 by 9. Technology or magic is a similar thing. Kind of like how in real life, all of the wonderful and crazy things of the universe are either a direct result from or emerge from a few easy to write equations in quantum physics. For every technology that you add to your story, the possibilities grow exponentially. So if you go from 2 technologies to 3 technologies, you're not just increasing your possibilities by a factor of 50%, it's more like you're multiplying them by 3. I would say, and this is just something I thought of right now, that the more technologies you add to your story, it's like the number of combinations on a digit combination. If you have 3 digits, you have 1,000 combinations. If you add another digit, That doesn't just make it a little bit harder, that makes it 10 times harder, up to 10,000 combinations. And if you add 2 more, that's 1,000,000 combinations. And so that's what adding new technologies together creates. Every time you add something new, you have to think, well, what about if I combine this with other technologies? What can I do with this? You know, if I want my story to be resolved this way, does adding a new technology mean there's a much easier way to resolve the story if they just decide to do these things instead? It's kind of like adding time travel into Harry Potter. It's like, have you really thought of all the implications of how wizards could use time travel? You know, I think they'd be a little more creative about that than just taking multiple classes at once. Another reason why you might want to use fewer technologies is that limitations are fun to work with. If you set yourself a limitation, the question becomes, how far can I push these few technologies and how much awesome stuff can I get from them without having to resort to creating something new? And I've found that with my 3-4 technologies, I can tell all the amazing stories in this universe that I want to tell. You know, I guess I do have a few more technologies in there, but they're like diamond glass. They're something that we have a decent chance of discovering and inventing in real life. You know, it is a futuristic story. They have space manufacturing. They can create materials without gravity. I guess I should clarify that I'm allowing myself 3 made-up technologies, where just completely, it looks like there's no way that we could invent this in real life, given known science, but it's thrown in there just to be fun, and so that the characters can have a means of traveling between star systems in a manner of time that is interesting for the story. So believe it or not, I don't like exposition in books. I think sci-fi goes way too hard on here's this cool science and the world building and all this stuff, and just explaining, and not spending enough time on the characters. You know, I've been reading Ian M. Banks' Culture series, and in some of them, he just spends so much time explaining the world and the history and the technology and the species, and it feels like it has nothing to do with the story. I mean, it's cool, but I'm not sure what the point of it is. So in my stories, the exposition gets trimmed way down, and the explanations of what's happening, I try to give the readers just enough explanation so that they can follow what's happening in the story and empathize with the viewpoint character. And then postscript, after the epilogue, I might tack on an appendix explaining, this is how hyperspace works according to the understanding of the Mobian scientists. Yes, I invented an entire science of hyperspace. And combining artificial gravity and diamond glass is enough to make space cities. So here's the problem with a ramble, is you never know whether you've gotten to the end or if you will think of more things to say later on. So in summary, there's a spectrum of technology to put into a sci-fi world, going from hard technology to soft technology. On the extreme end of hard technology is technology that is plausible given our current understanding of the laws of physics and chemistry, etc. And you can explain all the engineering details of how it's created and what it does. On the soft end, we have technology that's thrown in for whatever the story needs. It's fun, it's whimsical, and it's not the point of the story. The story focuses more on the characters and what's happening there. Then all along the way you have different stages, like you could have hard technology that you don't really explain but you focus on the characters instead. You could have soft technology that you use in consistent and logical ways, or you can invent your own science and technology and treat it as hard technology or soft technology. And the point in this, like the point in all things in writing, is that each of them has their own effects on the mood of the feel of the story, the vibe of the story. You know, and all writing and world building advice comes down to how can we better use our tools to communicate the story that we envision, and how can we analyze the ways that others have used tools in their stories. And the spectrum of hard technology to soft technology, once we understand it, then we can choose what we're doing precisely so that we can communicate the story that we're trying to tell. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.